Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. The day of my wedding was supposed to be perfect. I had spent months planning every little detail, from the color of the flowers to the music that would play as I walked down the aisle. I envisioned a moment where time would seem to stand still, where all the worries and stress of life would disappear, leaving only the joy of committing my life to the man I loved. But it didn't happen, as one evil person had other plans for me. James and I had been together for 2 years before we decided to get married. He is an amazing man and partner, kind, hardworking, loving, and fiercely dedicated to his children. His previous marriage had left him scarred. He told me once, "I wanted my first marriage to work. I really did. But there comes a point where you're just surviving, not living." He and his ex-wife, let's call her Laura, had been married for nearly a decade. They had 2 children together, a boy and a girl, who are the light of James's life. But for all the love he poured into his family, the marriage itself had long been on life support. Laura was a stay-at-home mother, which James fully supported. At first, he took on extra shifts at work, always looking for ways to provide, but never once did he complain about shouldering the financial burden. However, it became clear over time that Laura had no intention of contributing in other ways. James would come home after long days at the office to find the house a mess. The sink would be piled high with dishes, laundry would be scattered across the floor, and the kids, while happy and healthy, weren't getting much help with homework or activities. Mealtimes were often takeout or pre-packaged frozen dinners. At first, James chalked it up to the difficulties of raising 2 young children. Parenting is hard, he would tell himself. She'll get the hang of it. But as the years went on, nothing changed. Laura refused to work, claiming that any job she might get would barely cover childcare expenses. James didn't argue. He loved his children and wanted them to have their mother at home. But he did expect that she would at least help around the house, perhaps prepare meals, or be more engaged with their schoolwork. Instead, he found himself doing most of it on his own. He would come home from work and start cooking dinner, cleaning up the kitchen, and helping the kids with their homework. He felt less like a partner and more like a single parent. When he tried to bring it up, Laura would accuse him of not appreciating her. "I'm with the kids all day," she would say. "You don't know how hard it is." James would back off, not wanting to cause more friction. But over time, he grew resentful. The final straw came when Laura began spending the little money they had on frivolous items. James had been careful to set aside savings for their children's future, but Laura drained their joint account without consulting him. When he confronted her, she brushed it off, claiming she deserved nice things after all she did for the family. That was the moment James realized their marriage wasn't just struggling, it was over. The divorce process was messy, as divorces often are. Laura accused James of being emotionally distant, of neglecting her needs. But James knew the truth. Their relationship had failed because Laura had stopped trying. She didn't want to work, she didn't want to take care of the home, and she didn't want to support him in a way a partner should. When the divorce was finalized, James felt a mixture of relief and guilt. He had stayed in the marriage far longer than he should have, hoping things would improve, but they never did. When I met James, he was still carrying the weight of that failed marriage. He was cautious, unsure if he was ready to open his heart again. But as we got to know each other, I saw how much he loved his kids, how hard he worked to provide for them, and how he still held on to hope that he could find happiness again. It didn't take long for us to realize that we wanted a future together. But Laura wasn't about to make that easy. From the moment she found out about me, she became hostile. She accused James of cheating, though the timeline of our relationship made it impossible. We met months after their divorce was finalized, but that didn't stop her from spreading rumors, from telling their children that their father had left her for another woman. She tried to turn the kids against me, claiming I was trying to replace her, that I didn't love them, that I was a gold digger. It was exhausting, but James and I refused to let her bitterness destroy what we had. Over time, the children saw through the lies. They realized that I wasn't the monster their mother made me out to be. We formed a bond. I never tried to replace Laura. I simply wanted to support James and be a positive presence in their lives. Eventually, the kids started to enjoy spending time with me. They would ask me to help with their homework, invite me to their school events, and even ask for my advice on little things. It was heartwarming to see, but Laura wasn't taking it well. When James and I got engaged, her hostility turned into outright sabotage. She would accidentally call James during our dates, sending him long messages about how she was struggling, about how he was abandoning their family. She claimed she had proof that I wasn't who I seemed to be, that I was only with him for his money. None of it made sense, but she wouldn't let up. On the day of the wedding, I didn't expect her to show up. I thought surely she wouldn't go that far. But as I stood in front of the altar, about to exchange vows with James, she burst through the church doors, her voice echoing off the walls. "I have proof," she shouted, holding up an envelope. "This woman is cheating on you." Everyone turned to look at her. The officiant stopped mid-sentence. My heart was pounding as rumors rippled through the crowd. My mother looked horrified. My friends exchanged wide-eyed glances. "I have a photo," she continued, pulling them out of the envelope and holding them up. "I saw her with another man." She gave the photos to my husband. The photos she was waving weren't just any photos. They were of my twin sister and her husband. I glanced over to where my sister and her husband were seated in the front row. They looked just as confused as I was. My sister mouthed, "What's going on?" and her husband shook his head in disbelief. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. "Is this the man you're talking about?" I asked, pointing to my sister's husband. Laura turned to look at them, her face red with anger. "No, it's you," she screamed. "Don't try to embarrass me in front of everyone. I know what I saw." I stayed calm. "Those photos aren't of me. They're of my sister and her husband." She went from red to crimson. "You're lying," she shrieked. "You're just trying to humiliate me. You're a liar and a cheater." James had heard enough. He stepped forward. "That's enough," he said. "You need to leave." "Leave? Are you kidding me?" she yelled. "You're just going to let her humiliate me in front of everyone?" "Humiliate you," I said, my voice sharp. "You came here to ruin my wedding with false accusations. This is not the time or place for this. Please leave." Laura glared at me one last time before storming out of the church. The ceremony resumed, but my wedding day was ruined. I tried to focus on James, on the vows we were about to exchange, but part of me knew this wasn't the end of it. Sure enough, that evening, my phone was flooded with messages from Laura's friends. They accused me of humiliating her, of being cruel, of embarrassing the mother of James's children in front of them and my wedding guests. They claimed that I should have handled it privately and not in front of everyone. Never mind that she was the one who disrupted the ceremony, the one who waved around photos of my sister's husband as if they were proof of my infidelity. To them, I was the bad guy. I turned off my phone and tried to enjoy the wedding, despite it was already ruined. Next day, she called my husband and demanded I apologize to her in front of her kids. My husband said it's not happening, and she's the one who needs to apologize. Now she's threatening to take the kids from him because she won't allow them to live with such a monster stepmother. Am I the a-hole for standing up to my husband's ex-wife when she tried to sabotage our wedding and then refusing to apologize for humiliating her? Definitely not the a-hole. She showed up uninvited, created a scene, and tried to smear OP's reputation in front of everyone on OP's wedding day. When OP calmly pointed out the truth and made it clear that the photos didn't prove what she thought they did, she made herself look foolish, not OP. OP handled the situation with way more grace than most people would have in that moment. She owes OP and OP's husband an apology for her behavior. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you the bad guy. And now let's hear the community's opinion. This is absolutely not on you. She chose to storm in with a set of photos she didn't even verify and start accusing you in front of everyone. That's embarrassing for her, not you. You have every right to set the record straight. If she felt humiliated, that's a consequence of her actions. It's not like you planned for her to show up and disrupt everything. She brought this on herself. You handled it with far more dignity than she deserved, and I can't believe anyone thinks you should apologize for her poor choices. Not the a-hole all the way. Not the a-hole. This whole situation was entirely her doing. You didn't invite her, you didn't start the accusations, and you certainly didn't ask her to disrupt your wedding ceremony. She came in ready to cause chaos, and when you calmly explained that her so-called evidence didn't prove anything, she got embarrassed. That's not your fault. It's honestly surprising that anyone would defend her behavior. She made the wedding into a spectacle, not you. Standing up for yourself, especially on such an important day, doesn't make you the bad guy. If anything, she's the one who owes everyone an apology for ruining the mood. I don't see how you could possibly be considered the bad guy here, not the a-hole. She came in guns blazing, ready to humiliate you, and when it backfired, she tried to play the victim. That's not your responsibility. You have every right to defend yourself and your character. She made a public spectacle out of her accusations, and when her evidence didn't hold up, that's on her, not you. It's completely unreasonable for anyone to expect you to apologize for someone else's actions. You didn't cause this mess, she did, and her embarrassment is a natural consequence of her poor judgment. So I, 32 female, have 4 kids. I have 2 with my first ex-husband, who is currently addicted to D and has no contact with our kids, another child with my second ex-husband, and an infant with my now ex-boyfriend. Yes, my love life is crap, and I don't plan to date until my kids are way older. I'll just stick to my toys and romance novels. Anywho, I only receive child support for my child with my second ex-husband. He has an extremely well-paying job, and I receive $2,000 a month. He's the only partner I split custody with. He has a trust fund set up for our son that he will have access to when he's 18. With the $2,000 I receive, I invest half of that into my eldest son's tuition. He attends a very prestigious private school, and even with the full-ride scholarship he was given, boarding and books weren't included, so I have to pay for his boarding every month. It's around $2.5K a month, and I cover the other $1.5 out of my own expenses. The other $1,000 I receive goes towards all my kids, their food, clothes, and miscellaneous things. To clarify, I pay my own rent and bills. For example, my other child with my first ex-husband was invited on a trip with her friend's family to Disneyland during winter break. So I spent a good chunk of the money on her plane ticket, the Disney ticket, food, and other things. Or maybe my son with my second ex-husband wants a new expensive toy he saw on YouTube. And with a new baby, having that extra chunk of money to spend on everything he needs is very beneficial. I never really discuss finances with other people. Last night I went out with an old friend and the drinks started flowing. She was asking how I handle all my financial obligations raising 4 kids so young, and I did mention that the child support I receive from my second ex-husband not only helps keep things afloat, but the extra money every month that I don't use is in a savings account for a rainy day. My friend flipped out. She said it's wrong I used the money the court ordered to be used on my son, on all my other kids. Since their fathers aren't in their lives, it's my responsibility to pick up the slack and not my second ex-husband's. I tried explaining that my son will never have to worry about finances his entire life, but my other kids will. She told me I'm money hungry, and if my ex-husband was smart, he'd challenge the court to lessen the payment if they knew I was spending most of it on my other kids. I'm not going to struggle when I have the money to give all my kids a better life, but being called a bad mother rocked my world, and I need to know if I'm wrong for what I'm doing. So, am I the a-hole? Sadly, I'm going you're the a-hole. Rent, food, utilities, necessities, I get it. Not the a-hole if that was it. Fancy private schools and Disney trips are what make you the a-hole. I'm sorry, but you're the a-hole. The bulk of this money should be going to the son it's being paid for. It is money hungry to use it so recklessly on all the kids. And I really want to know, is the son that's going to private school the son of the ex-husband that's paying? Because if it's not, that's a problem. Your ex-husband would be well within his right to contend that ruling and get the child support lowered a pretty substantial amount. You want to use the money for utilities, food, insurance, rent. Fine, that's what it's for. Funding Disney trips for the other kids? That's unacceptable. Info. Does your ex know the money is being spread among 4 kids? Yes, he does. Case closed. He knows it and is fine with it. It's nobody else's business. It's still unfair to the child who the support is intended for. Me, female, and my husband Tom have a child together, 3 male. Tom has another child with his ex-wife, Connor, 13 male. At the time of the divorce, I only met him 3 years later. Tom had a stable job that paid well, so the judge ruled child support for his son very high, and Tom had no problem paying. He has visits on weekends. After 1 year of our son, Tom was fired and found a job that paid much less than the previous one. For comparison purposes, the old salary, the child support took 30%, and with the current one, it takes 85%. This created tension between us. I had to start working hard and twice as normal. Tom couldn't help with almost anything at home, as there was only 15% of his salary left after paying my stepson's child support. Even though I talked to him, he said he didn't want to downsize so as to not harm Connor, and I really tried to be understanding. This reached my limit when I had an accident and I was out of work for 3 months. I'm self-employed and my salary has decreased by 95%. In those 3 months, we didn't go hungry because my sister helped. And if he was 1 day late in paying child support, Tom's ex would call him and charge him, not caring that we were tight. 2 months like this. I sat down with Tom and told him that our son had the same quality of life rights as his brother, which is not happening and is harming my health. The accident was due to stress. So it was his decision, but that I would do whatever was necessary for my son to have a good quality, and it was time to realize that it is not possible to maintain this value of child support without interfering in the quality of life of his other son. Without, I have to cover the whole. He tried to argue, but he saw my point eventually, and after 1 month seeing this, the judge asked for a reduction in the value of child support. It was proven that it was far beyond what he could pay without interfering with his life and other kid. He fixed it to 30% of his salary. Since, Tom has never complained about it. It's pretty clear that I influenced him, and his ex is texting me, saying that I'm knowingly lowering my stepson's quality of life, and that I should feel ashamed for doing this to a child. This is a pretty mess, and it's left to me, like the monster who did this to a child. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The judge never said, you need to pay to keep up Connor's and his mother's lifestyle, but that you need to pay 30% of your salary. If the salary changed, then the amount changed. In my opinion, child support isn't meant to support an entire family, but to provide support to a child. Also, how is his ex charging him for being 1 day late? There are people who are years behind on child support payments still walking around. You would think this, but a good friend of mine went through something similar. Her hubby was laid off from his job and then rehired a month later at a lower pay. He worked by contract. Proved to the judge that his pay was about 30% less than before. Judge agreed, but stated that between his pay and the wife's pay, my friend, they would maintain the same child support, which really pissed off my friend. Not that she had any problems with the kids, but the youngest was in 8th grade, the other 2 in high school, and the ex didn't work at all. So my friend was basically paying all of their bills while nearly all of his paychecks went to child support, and they didn't have any kids between them. Ugh. Not the a-hole. A lot of people might not agree with me, but a percentage of salary is fairer than a fixed amount that doesn't take into account a salary reduction. Also, he has 2 children. Why should the one he lives with live in poverty, whilst the other has a nice life? He should care about this. He is letting you be the bad guy so he doesn't have to be. Sounds like it would antagonize his wife more, so it's better for him if she thinks you are the bad guy. Well, I don't think you are. My mom loves being a martyr. She raised me by herself after she left my father. She refused to take him to court for child support, and instead let me grow up not in poverty, but not exactly well. I had food and clothing and a roof over my head. I also started having to provide for myself when I started babysitting. I was earning money so I could afford to pay for some of my own things, like school fees and such. I got out when I was 16. I moved in with her sister, my aunt. My aunt helped me get my act together and get into college. She helped me get a judgment against my father for child support. He never paid it. She helped me apply for scholarships. She helped me save my money to start my business after I graduated. I am doing well now, and my mom is getting close to retirement. She recently contacted me and asked if I could help her out. She had worked herself to the bone supporting me growing up, and she feels like I owe her. I told her that she probably has less money than she could because she never bothered collecting child support. She screamed at me that she had made her decision to cut my father out of her life, and that I needed to respect it. So I told her there was an existing judgment against him for child support. It was worth a fair bit of money, and all she had to do was get a lawyer to get it for her. She hasn't called me for money since, but she also has not tried to collect the money he owes her. I regularly stop by to see my aunt and take her shopping for groceries and household goods. I pay because I owe her. She took me in and helped me for 2 years of high school and 6 years of college. My mom has been complaining to her about me, but my aunt also thinks that my mom has been leaving money on the table long enough. Answers to questions I know will be asked. I am an affair baby. My father is still married to his wife. I am 100% his child. He's on my birth certificate and there is DNA evidence. My mom is a healthcare aide. I'm an accountant. To the best of my knowledge, he never gave her any money, Or if he did, it wasn't enough to make our lives any easier. I got the judgment but never sought to get it enforced. I just wanted it for backup. My mom says that I'm an a-hole for second-guessing her choices and not helping her. I told her I would after she collected from him. Not the a-hole. It's your father who owes your mother the money she's lacking. If she didn't do what she needed to do to get the money he owes her, and still won't pursue it after someone even got the ball rolling for her, it's on her now. Not the a-hole. The money was for your welfare, and no matter how she felt about your father, she should have had the money collected for your benefit. Clearly, it would have made a difference in your early life. Gonna go you're the a-hole. Sorry. You haven't indicated what type of relationship was between your mother and father, aside from the affair. So I suspect it is because you don't know. You haven't described any martyr behavior, except not wanting money off your father, which isn't being a martyr. It may be for a very good reason. There is a reason she refused to chase child support. You admitted you had clothes, food, and housing. It sounds like she did her best. No parent would choose placing their child at a disadvantage financially, unless for a good reason. I know there are crappy parents out there, but OP's mom doesn't sound like she was neglectful. Otherwise, OP would have added it. Not the a-hole. Your very existence was a choice that both your parents made. If your mother regretted that choice because he was the wrong partner, that's really on her. But a refusal to address the financial aspects of that choice is a refusal to take responsibility for it. Having a kid with somebody ties you together at a molecular level forever, whether you like it or not. And in refusing to acknowledge that, she is trying to make you responsible for her choices. My mother-in-law, who is usually very sweet and nice, asked me to try on her wedding dress as she wanted to gift it to me for the wedding. I did not want to hurt her, and so I tried on the dress, even though I knew that I wanted to buy my own dress. It fit quite well and looked pretty, but not what I was looking for at all. So I thanked mother-in-law for the opportunity and the gesture, but that it was not what I envisioned myself wearing on my wedding day. But that she was welcome to join me and my mom the next day when we were looking for wedding dresses. She joined us, and I thought everything was fine. But during the shopping, she tried to make me try on dresses similar to her wedding dress, but more my style. I tried 2 of her picks, but stated that it was still not what I was looking for, even though I liked it a little bit better on me than her dress, and I thanked her for helping me. She got quiet and only shrugged her shoulders over the other dresses I tried on. I finally found my dream dress, bought it. I'm paying about 2,000 euros, and my parents paid about 300 euros for shoes and a veil. My in-laws don't pay anything towards the dress or the wedding. And then we went to eat lunch together. Mother-in-law was still unusually quiet, so I asked what was wrong and if I could help her. She shrugged her shoulders and said, "It's fine," and I thought she needed a little more time for her. So I started a conversation with my mom and started eating after we all got our food. We did not exclude her and tried to make her a part of our conversation, but she just shrugged and moped. A few minutes into lunch, she said, "You are an ungrateful, spoiled brat." And I was utterly confused and asked why. This is what she said. "I would have gifted you my dress, but it wasn't good enough for little miss I want a new dress. That's ungrateful. And I tried to find a compromise with a dress that matched both our tastes, and you still denied all that. You're so ungrateful and impolite, not even able to make a compromise." She then stood up, paid for her meal, and left without me being able to say anything. I asked my fiance later that day about it, and he told me not to worry, as I did nothing wrong. But sister-in-law texted me that I was an ungrateful a-hole for hurting her mother this much and not compromising on anything. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Why the duck would you compromise? You're not her kid who might like the history behind it, and really every bride wants to be special in their own wedding dress. Not the a-hole. There's nothing to compromise on here. You tried on her dress, as she requested, and did not feel it was for you. She was not expected to pay for the dress you chose, so cost wasn't a factor that would affect her. It's your wedding, your choice. No, this is not mother-in-law's wedding day. She has literally zero say in your wedding dress. It's your day, your dream, your dress. Your sister-in-law getting involved is ridiculous. Mother-in-law was way out of line. Then sister-in-law attempts to turn it all around on you. How lovely. You are not the a-hole. Update. 1. My fiance already talked to her, I believe 3 or 4 days ago. 2. My mother-in-law called me just a few minutes ago to apologize. To me, it sounded sincere. She told me that she was disappointed that day because she wanted to be a part of all of that my wedding day, and she did not know how to ask since my parents already said they'll pay for my veil and shoes. and she knew that I didn't wear jewelry, except my engagement ring and a necklace my fiance gifted me 8 years ago. So she couldn't give something like this. And she did not want to gift me a garter, since she thought it was inappropriate to gift her daughter-in-law something like that. And that she was hurt after trying to give input on my dress and was rejected. She apologized again, and then asked to treat me and my mom to lunch tomorrow as an apology for her behavior, and that she wants to offer, if I'm up for it, that she pays for my bridal bouquet. So tomorrow we're going out for lunch, and after that to a florist, so I can show her the flowers I like and the idea I have for my bouquet. I, 22 female, was in a relationship with Kyle, 25 male, for over a year when Ella, 23 female, came into the picture. I'm so very sure that there was no cheating going on. Kyle wasn't being secretive, he wasn't hiding anything, and none of our friends seemed to be lying to me. So I was very heartbroken when he broke up with me, and, shock horror, got with Ella a few weeks later. Now, I'm a socially anxious introvert, so hiding from them and my friends was easy. I threw myself into work and my hobbies, and did everything I could to avoid them all due to the fact that Kyle and I share a friend group. Luckily, I had my best friend, Jenna, 21 female, by my side, and 100% on my side. Fast forward a year, Kyle and Ella announced their pregnancy to the world. Seeing the Facebook post made me feel like I was being broken up with all over again. The baby was born last month, and whilst our friends have congratulated them and gone to see the baby, Jenna and I haven't. I understand that the baby is innocent, but I wouldn't be able to be in the same room as Kyle and Ella. Ella messaged me a few nights ago, telling me that I was a heartless bee for not being happy for them, and that I should have at least congratulated Kyle. Jenna saw these messages and sent one of her own to Ella, basically saying that Ella has no right to demand anything from me after she ruined my relationship. Jenna has reassured me day after day that I didn't need to say anything to either of them, but it's been eating away at me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Ella is nuts. I can't imagine caring what my partner's ex thinks about my new baby. If I was her, I'd be annoyed if you contacted your ex, even to say congrats. Why do they even need a congratulations? What difference could it possibly make? I'm unclear why you're even in contact with them, though. It's perfectly normal to just stop talking to your ex. Not the a-hole, though. Not the a-hole. I don't understand why Ella's so upset. You're an ex who wants to maintain distance. It's been a year and you haven't had any contact or interactions with them. Why would Ella expect a sudden change? And honestly, Jenna shouldn't have messaged Ella. It's between the two of you, and Jenna inserting herself into it just creates more drama than necessary. Jenna is right, though. You owe Kyle and Ella nothing.